Strikes on Russia, deep strikes resumed. There were fires in Taganrog, Kursk, Bryansk, and beyond. At the same time, the enemy continues terrorist strikes and, after a pause during the day, resumed attacks on Ukrainian territory using Shaheds. And Trump is imposing hellish sanctions against Russia while Iran is preparing to declare war on the United States of America. So, about all of this, now in order. Greetings, friends. I am Alexander Musienko, and you are on my channel. And this is a briefing of the news that I consider relevant, important, and worthy of your esteemed attention. So, I will start with truly urgent, important information. And the fact is that last night, explosions and fires were recorded at military facilities on the territory of Russia. And we are talking about Taganrog. We are talking about Kursk, and we are talking about the Bryansk region, and not only. In fact, we can say that after we saw possible lulls, of course, if the information is confirmed by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine officially, then it will be possible to comment on the results. In fact, these night attacks, but there is a visible trend that the strikes have resumed. I want to remind you that for about a week there were no observed deep strikes, attacks deep into Russian territory. However, we see that the enemy is committing terror. The enemy is shelling Ukrainian cities. This night, Kharkiv, Zaporizhzhia region, Odessa, Kherson region. In recent days, again, Kropivnitsky, Odessa, Kiev, Kharkiv, Kryvyi Rih. The enemy continues the terror. And therefore, of course, we must defend ourselves. And Ukraine has the capabilities and opportunities to respond to Russian military targets if they do not wish to adhere to the so-called energy truce. And in general, Ukraine has taken steps that demonstrated full readiness for a ceasefire, an absolutely constructive and correct position, as noted by the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, President of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky. Our position is clear, open, pragmatic, constructive, and understandable to our partners. At the same time, Putin, the Russian dictator, continues to play dumb, because when opening the meeting of the National Security and Defense Council, he says to Belousov, the Russian Minister of Defense, inform us about the state of compliance with the so-called energy truce. However, Belousov's response itself did not make it into the Kremlin's video. Well, agree, it's quite predictable. And now we see another round of escalation, which should end with something. Reuters reports that in the administration of US President Trump, they see that more time will be needed in order to achieve at least a ceasefire. A full and comprehensive ceasefire in the Russian-Ukrainian war. They seem somewhat confused. Now, against the backdrop of President Trump's personal hope that it would be possible to compel Russia, that Russia would relent. More precisely, not to compel, but simply that Putin should agree to a ceasefire, and he should ensure this because it would seem he knows Putin, as Trump noted, and this will definitely happen. But unfortunately, despite our sincere desire for peace, which truly must be very sincere, this must be understood. We are currently witnessing another outbreak of war, unfortunately. And what Russia is doing, not wanting the onset of peace, we are also observing. Considering what Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, is stating, supposedly preparing. The next round of consultations and meetings between the Russian and American delegations in Saudi Arabia, it is now clearly observed that Russia is adhering to an approach towards continuing the war. Therefore, pressure must be applied, therefore they must be forced. 50 senators signed a letter. Senators from both the Republican and Democratic parties. This project is being promoted by Lindsey Graham, a senator who is part of Donald Trump's close circle regarding the imposition of a 500% tariff on those countries that purchase Russian oil and other products, other minerals and natural resources. In this way, There may be an attempt and desire to effectively distance China and India and other countries, including some European countries, which unfortunately still engage in trade with Russia, to demonstrate to them that it is not worth doing so and that they should seek alternatives. This is what is currently being considered, and the senior correspondent of the Fox News channel, Fox News, is precisely a channel close to the Republican Party, which more, let's say, covers activities. The senior correspondent of this channel noted that Trump believes Putin is stalling for time and is currently considering the possibility of imposing aggressive sanctions, including on the Russian shadow fleet. It is noted that Trump is disappointed with Putin and believes that Russia is stalling the ceasefire negotiations. There is a discussion about what to do next. The main thing is that this discussion should not be prolonged. What to do next has been known for a long time, and Ukraine knows the solution. Strengthening Ukraine's security, providing Ukraine with the necessary weapons, supplying components to be able to defend itself, and to counter Russian aggression. The second is, of course, the imposition of sanctions against Russia. And third, coordinating actions with European partners regarding the potential deployment of a military mission on Ukrainian territory. Two scenarios are possible today. Trump will either try to really pressure Russia, or he will continue to look for ways to make agreements. Here, let's say, the moment of truth will be whether the next meeting in Saudi Arabia takes place. I do not rule out that it may happen and that the United States of America will make efforts to achieve a ceasefire, not excluding pressure on both Russia and Ukraine, which may also be happening. This must be understood as well. But you see, I know everyone, I know your reaction, and I know the sociological surveys published by KEIS show that the majority do not trust Trump, do not consider him a strategic partner, and support Europe. Well, you see, still, when there are sweet speeches promising a lot, as President Marco or some of our other partners sometimes do, of course, one wants to believe, especially if it often appears in the media. If these are not such, but rather sharp statements, including towards Ukraine, as the President of the USA allows himself, well, we see that negative reactions arise. It will be interesting if Trump really imposes hellish sanctions, what the reaction will be. But we must understand that in any case, there's nothing good in this, in my opinion, because it means that the negotiation process is reaching a dead end, and that means the war will continue. And that means Russia will continue to terrorize unless they are forced, unless they are truly defeated. So, who among the European forces is ready for a defeat? So, we are waiting for the mission of European military personnel, which is supposed to be on Friday. And, as noted by the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, they are preparing to directly discuss the parameters and possibilities of the future mission on the territory of Ukraine. This is important, of course, and we are counting on it, and I firmly believe that eventually military bases of our partners will appear on the territory of Ukraine. But what comes next? That is, we must assess and understand the capabilities that even with the implementation of hellish sanctions, for example, the candidate for the position of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, USA, during the hearings before his appointment, notes that the Kremlin intends to wage war in 2025, and the situation on the battlefield may reach a stalemate. And in fact, yes, Russia plans to conduct offensive actions. But can they count on operational strategic successes? As noted by the same candidate for the position of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that Russia and Ukraine are engaged in a war of attrition and it will continue this way. Well, this is bad because a war of attrition, you see, is in fact, well, it's a very negative trend because typically a war drags on. It consumes a lot of resources and it constantly requires people. Similarly, despite the fact that our front is becoming more robotic, despite what we see now with the increase in the number of drones and how our capabilities are growing, but still. And as of today, is there a solution on the battlefield? Directly. It can only be in prolonging the war, for which Putin can, despite everything, prepare and drag on. And even with the sharp drop in oil prices, well, at least until the end of 2025, he can hold out. And here we need support. But does this mean any breakthroughs on the front? No. Most likely there won't be any. But Ukraine will defend itself, push back the enemy within the framework of active defense, retaliate, and inflict maximum losses on the opponent. This needs to be understood. But are any breakthroughs possible? I don't think so. So, what could will happen? The war may again shift to airstrikes and an exchange of blows. Who will try to quickly target military objects and infrastructure directly? And in this sense, it's not enough to talk about strikes on refineries. No, that's not enough because it's a very long-term perspective when Russia will feel greater consequences. For us, it's important to also strike military targets, airfields, just like it was at the Engels 2 air base. And strategic aviation is gathering there now, yes, but look at how long there haven't been any strikes. Precisely because it was extremely successful. The SOU attack was carried out on the Engels 2 air base and destroyed the depots with missiles. Europe at the same time essentially supports the continuation of the war. They openly say that as long as Ukraine fights, Russian troops won't be at the border with Russia. Meanwhile, it is still interesting to wait. The investigation into the death of 4 American soldiers in an armored vehicle in Lithuania during exercises near the Belarusian border. Yes, the armored vehicle sank in a swamp. But if someone is so naive and believes that it just went off course, just went somewhere it shouldn't have, just an unfortunate accident happened. With the American armored vehicle and servicemen near the white Belarusian border, you can believe it. I don't believe it, I'm not that naive. And I suspect that something might have happened. And I think it happened precisely to test the reaction of the USA on NATO's eastern flank. Russia is probing to see how far it can go. And for some reason it seems to me that the Russian and Belarusian special services are very, very involved in this incident. Actually, speaking of which, as of today, is being observed, and this also needs to be established, how far Putin will allow it to go. Marco Rubio, the United States Secretary of State, will be in Europe these days to hold consultations with European partners. Most interestingly, he will clearly raise the issue of increasing defense spending by NATO countries. European ones who are relaxed, and many of them remain relaxed even now, which of course can only encourage Putin to act aggressively against European countries in their current state. Most interestingly, whether Rubio will meet with the Danish foreign minister, the meeting is still in question regarding the issue of Greenland, which is currently, once again, a pressing issue. And Greenland is precisely about the confrontation between the USA and Russia. Whatever the case may be, it's about strategic interests. You see, no matter what Trump says, no matter what emotional outbursts he makes, there is still a deep state. There is a state security system that operates, and there is a certain strategy. There are people who do not want the demise and loss of US leadership. And perhaps to ensure there are more such people rather than fewer, Trump wants to dismiss Elon Musk from his position. precisely from the Department of Government Efficiency, which was laying off people, everything. He is losing his position, leaving. Why is he leaving? Well, I think he couldn't withstand the competition. The American president, and it had to happen. The US president did the same during his previous term in office when the team changed so much that from not supporting Ukraine, being pro-Russian, it became pro-Ukrainian, which sold javelins to Ukraine, something Trump is quite, well, let's say, proud of. He constantly talks about it. So essentially, that's what we are seeing. Plus, a possible conflict with Marco Rubio. Well, in the meantime, the security situation in the world is deteriorating because we see that the United States of America continues operations against the Houthis in Yemen, and the Yemenis claim that they are allegedly attacking American aircraft carriers. And Iran is calling for negotiations, supposedly once again. Information has appeared in the British publication The Telegraph that Iran is preparing to strike the USA to declare war. In fact, specifically, it is about a preemptive strike on the US base on the Chagos Islands, where strategic American B-2 bombers are stationed. So now is the time for the USA to show strength and demonstrate to everyone that it still has it. To the Iranians, Yemeni Houthis, Russians, and everyone who tries to question it, the best moment is right now. The move is up to President Trump. We are waiting for decisive actions. Take care of yourselves. Glory to Ukraine.